There's an almost futuristic feel around Andrew Yang. One of his first cafe questions was about bringing more technology into the race for the White House.
We're thinking about using 3D holograms. Have you used that today to be in Portsmouth and here at the same time that you practice?
The son of immigrants who achieved the American dream, Yang says his parents are his heroes.
My father grew up on a peanut farm in Asia with no floor. And when I visited his childhood home, I was like, no way. Looking around this farming village, and I was like, how the heck did you go from here to... So then my father ended up getting his PhD in physics from Berkeley, where he met my mom. So that's like an incredible ascent in one generation, because he went from the peanut farm to generating 65 US patents for GE and IBM. And I asked him when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I thought everyone's dad had a PhD, and I learned the hard way that was not true. I was like, it's like, what's your dad's PhD? And then someone I'm like, oh no.
Yang's parents worked hard to send him to one of the best schools in the country, Phillips Exeter Academy, right here in New Hampshire. He didn't exactly enjoy the experience and admitted as much when he gave a speech to students there earlier this year.
And then the student body erupted into applause, and I was like, whoa, that's not the reaction I was going for. So I spent a lot of time here in New Hampshire. I came of age here. I went to college at Brown, which is not that far away. I grew up in upstate New York, so I consider myself a New England product.
For the younger Yang, one escape was music and attending concerts.
How many of you saw the video of me crowd surfing that went out a month or so ago? All right, so here's the thing. It was not my first time crowd surfing. Because when I was a teenager, I'd go to these concerts, and then sometimes I would end up on top of the crowd. So I remember I grabbed Morrissey's wrist at one concert. I don't know if you guys know who Morrissey is. So that was a crowd surfing experience.
You don't wash your hands?
I washed it later that night. Probably my favorite concert was U2 in Saratoga Springs. Saw them during the, it was the Zooropa tour, I believe. It's like in the 90s. But I saw most of like the 90s canon in concert. So I saw, this was my canon, so you can judge, whatever, it's fine. So it was like U2, The Cure, Depeche Mode. I went to the first 3 Lollapaloozas, so I saw like all of that stuff. Yeah, so I went to concerts a lot.
He was also a speech and debate champion and competed overseas for the U.S. national team in Great Britain.
But I was not paired up with another American. What happened was you got divided up, and so I believe it was me and a Canadian debater against 2 British debaters, and then we were given a government policy proposal. It might have been like the legalization of certain drugs or something along those lines. And then we had like a little bit of time to prepare, and then there was like a sequence where it's like one person would be for it, and then there'd be like the anti, and then you'd rebut. And I remember vividly one time where my partner in debate was like just sitting here with like a big smile on his face like this, and like no matter what happened, he had like that look on his face, and then I was like, next to him, and then there was a time when I had like a visible reaction to a point like our opponents made, where I was like that's like not right or whatever. They like elbow me, being like. Like just so straight smile, and I was like, wow, I guess that's the Canadian way.
After graduating from law school, Yang became an attorney, but quickly soured on the profession.
There was also a sense that I was documenting other people's accomplishments or ideas, and then I thought, well, shouldn't I have my own accomplishments and ideas instead of documenting other people's accomplishments and ideas? And at that point I was young, I didn't have tons of personal obligations, and so I thought, well, if I don't take a risk now, am I more or less likely to take a risk later? It's like probably less likely, because hopefully I'll like have a family and have responsibilities. So if right now I'm young and dumb and don't have responsibilities, like I should probably take a risk now. And then my company flopped. So I'm very glad that happened when I didn't have a whole lot of responsibilities and it was just me being sad.
Yang doesn't dwell, and neither did the voters at the diner, subjecting him to a lightning round of questions.
Decaf or regular?
Decaf.
Waffles or pancakes?
Pancakes.
Lobster in the rough or a lobster roll?
Roll. Because I'm lazy.
No, Don't say that too loud.
Because I'm efficient.
There you
That's
go.
it. Fishing is better.
How about New England lake vacation or New England beach vacation?
Beach.
Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix. Oh, you know, that's starting to be a tie now. Netflix has become really disappointing to me. You know, I mean, it used to go there and be like, there'd be something you'd be excited to watch. And now I'm like, what is this crap?
Yang refers to his wife as a superhero. Together they have 2 sons. One lives with autism.
There are certain physical activities he likes. One of the things that was tough as a dad was that there was an extended period that when he ran, he would fall. And so like when he was running, you actually felt like anxiety the whole time instead of being like, oh, great. Like it's like running around happy outside. Instead, it's like, oh no, it's like gotta keep him on like a softer surface because if he's running on blacktop and falls, then he ends up hurting himself. But now there are some physical activities that he likes to do so that we play catch and he likes to swim. So we take him swimming whenever we can. And he does ask me a lot of questions. And you can tell he's processing the answers to the questions. The questions are all over the map. He's asked me questions out of left field about, what did you ask me the other day? Like, what's an ecosystem? And then I had to sit there and be like, an ecosystem is... And then his follow-up question was, can something be in an ecosystem that's not alive? And then I said, well, if you're talking about a particular kind of ecosystem, like a business ecosystem, then yes. Yeah, my son's very spiky. So like he has real, I have a feeling, and we saw this a little bit with that teen who's, the climate change activist, but I feel like he just sees the world in a different way. And one of the messages I have in the campaign is that being atypical is the new normal.
Yang is known for not wearing a tie on the campaign trail, but while his look is relaxed, his hair actually requires a lot of work.
Like I have this very stubborn cowlick in the back that I do a bad job taming. It was actually one of the banes of my existence in my teenage years because I always had this tuft of hair sticking out and I was very self-conscious about it. So even now, like I'll go out. Sure. So I think one irritating thing about me for the campaign team is like they'll like sigh and then one of them has to like try and like smush my hair down.